watching me pull up across the room. I think you like the view. You gonna make a move. I don't make this easy for you. It's not intentional, I'm not responsible. I never played a game, but if it's in my face, I don't make it easy for you. Everyone is an option, I don't think that's a problem. No, my eyes make me sweet, but most people don't fuck with me. I don't make this easy for you. I don't make this easy for you. And now's the time between you and I. Get out of your head, step into my mind. Be that easy for you. I could be that easy for you. Baby, I like to learn. How do you wanna feel? Tell me your fantasies as you discover me. Can I make this easy for you? I wanna make it easy for you. And it's not intentional, I'm not responsible. I never play the games, but if you're in my way, I don't make this easy for you. I won't be that easy for you. Everyone is an option, I don't think that's a problem. No, my eyes make me sweet, but most people don't fuck with me. I don't make this easy for you. I don't make this easy for you. And now's the time between you and I. Get out of your head, step into my mind. Be that easy for you. I could be that easy for you. And now's the time between you and I. Get out of your head, step into my mind. Be that easy, be that easy, be that easy for you.
She said that she hate me, I hate me too. I can always tell when you're lying, girl, you're see-through. All these miles away, yeah, I just wanna see you. Baby, give me good face, she hit me like seafood. Remember when I saw you, hi, it's nice to meet you. Know my old girl salty, she just wanna be you. I'm a dog, no Maltese, I don't wanna leave you. Once you're right here, I just don't wanna mistreat you, no. Cause I've been a douchebag before, baby girl, I don't wanna repeat. She just won't please me, she look in my eyes, told me why are you bleeding? And I don't even know how to answer. I take these drugs to my bladder. She says she noticed a pattern. She say I look gorgeous, I tell her I'm flattered. But I hate my reflection. When I look at you, all I see is perfection. I'm so depressed and I don't know the reason, just wanna feel better. Hate my reflection. When I look at you, all I see is perfection. I'm so depressed and I don't know the reason, just hope I feel better. Don't know the reason, just hope I feel better. I just hope I feel better. You said that you love me, don't know if it's still true. Hate it when you're not here, love it when I'm with you. You say you don't trust me, all the shit we've been through. Why you always upset? I don't really get you, I don't really get you. Why should I always gotta be so stressful? Baby, can you tell me why are you so vengeful? I don't understand you, I can't live without you, but I can't fucking stand you. I'm just so obsessed, I should take better I know she love it. I hate my reflection. When I look at you, all I see is perfection. I'm so depressed and I don't know the reason, just wanna feel better. Hate my reflection. When I look at you, all I see is perfection. I'm so depressed and I don't know the reason, just hope I feel better. Don't know the reason, just hope I feel better. I just hope I feel better.
I've been signing on the city lights. All this doubt around me, then but look, I got it right. Don't you try to hit me, now you live a petty life. All those nights I laid awake, I pray for better life. Now I wake up with a baddie like I said I might. This is better life, you never tried, I bet it right. This is better life, you never tried, I bet it right. You been stuck just where you at because you never tried. Want a better life, I had to try, I bet it right. Yeah, I just took a test and yeah, let me write. Look, I just took a test and yeah, I rolled the dice. Yeah, women I'll be bad because the fuck was nice. But yeah, I must admit that this ain't overnight. I just hit the double with the jackpot. I'm in the snow, this in New England, but I'm dying high. Now I'm addict for the music when I can't stop. Ain't gon' let me anywhere to ask me. Ask a favor with a shout out to gas me. Really, they ain't take a risk, but want the outcome. Then asking how come. I've been signing on the city lights. All this doubt around me, then but look, I got it right. Don't you try to hit me, now you live a petty life. All those nights I laid awake, I pray for better life. Now I wake up with a baddie like I said I might. This is better life, you never tried, I bet it right. This is better life, you never tried, I bet it right. You been stuck just where you at because you never tried. Want a better life, I had to try.
I'm all in this. I call the shots, I never call it quits. Trust my intuition, bet it's right and bitch, it often is. Seen too many others come and go, they had the wrong intent. Do it out of love and never for it, then I watch it get bigger than expected. No second guess it, I let it set it. It's God's plan, we out here only accepting blessings. I'm stuck with it, this mindset is terminal. In and out different terminals, leveling up is personal. And I already made it, y'all can miss me. I smack my girl's ass, tell her pinch me. It's hard to believe I made something from nothing. No hindsight discussions, I've been writing, I love it.
Fibonacci Live, welcome back. Happy New Year. This is Fibonacci Live. We're in the gallery.
Yes.
And we are excited to be here for 2022 here with the co-hosts and myself, Alchemist, Lana,
What's poppin'?
Moody,
Hey.
and Wordsmith dropping the bombs.
Yo.
We are really geeked to start this year off with some of the dopest topics. We want to do a quick recap. And before we do that recap, we always like to give a shout out to everybody that helps make this engine go, makes this show run. And that starts with Wordsmith. Talk to us.
Yo, what's going on, people?
What's going on?
All right, so first of all, Happy New Year. You
Yes.
know what I'm saying? So welcome back, first show of the new year. And I'm gonna kick it off with the word of the week and also the topic that we have this week. Let me get right to that. So the word of the week is whitewashed. And I actually had to, I'm gonna give two definitions for this. So there's a regular dictionary definition and then there's an urban dictionary
Yo,
That's funny.
of
That's
whitewash.
funny.
So the regular dictionary definition, whitewash is a noun. So anything as deceptive words or actions used to cover up or gloss over faults, errors, or wrongdoings, or absolve a wrongdoer from blame. I was like, okay. Urban Dictionary, a little bit of a different spin.
On point.
It says it's a derogatory term used to describe a minority who has assimilated with Western society. The whitewashed person does not necessarily abandon his or her own culture, but rather embrace others besides his or her own. Some people take it as a compliment, while others take it as an insult.
I think that's where we at.
I wanted to give both. But yeah. So that's the
Interesting.
the word of the week. Now the topic of the week will be or is from ethnicity to white. That's the topic of the week. So
And while you guys, out there, you chew on that, we want to get you to press the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Fibonacci Live.
Yes.
If you're watching on Galleria de Arte YouTube, we will be crossing over to Fibonacci Live next week. So our Facebook, Twitch, check us out. We're here in the gallery every week. CPT time right now. But
Usually at 3,
between
but-
3 and 4, you know what I mean?
somewhere in there.
But we will strive for excellence. We push for excellence in this show. And before I pass it off to Wordsmith, we were talking about the people that make the engine go, which are our brand ambassadors. We usually get the accredited viewership at the end, when you see our screen, but we really like to give a verbal shout out to Jaden, to Mish, to Kels, which are ambassadors, our cinematographers, our camera crew, our videographers, our editors,
Yeah.
Rhonda, Terrence, Z, Ruben, who I like to say Rubano, you know what I mean? So without these guys, then also ourselves put in the work, Lana, Moody. Lana has brought along so much to us. Moody has brought the introspective from the youth. Wordsmith, he brings these very, very structured. He really keeps us going. This is a dope show. We have really gotten a lot of feedback, and we anticipate and will be continue to go forward with building out our audience in the gallery. So we also encourage individuals to send your topics in, send what you want to discuss or talk about. We come from a background out of radio as of recently with WSRB 106.3 FM, which we have a relationship with. So we come out of the same background. Check our radio show station out, our website on FibonacciRadio.com. Check out thegalleriedearte.com. These are all microcosms. It's popping.
Yes,
That's
it is.
all I could tell you.
It definitely is.
We have to get that out because we're continuing to grow. We're continuing to connect. We also give a shout out to the affiliates that we have, Export Fitness, Green Book Enterprises. Wordsmith will give you more information on those later. But man, let's get back to the word and the topic, from ethnicity to white. We picked some dope topics, guys. Chime in at any time, but we're going to start with the theology of what Wordsmith was saying. Let's start with the fact that there is a whitewashed. Okay, there's a whitewashed. Wordsmith, I believe, was explaining that it comes from all cultural groups that in one retrospect intertwines their culture along with more of a prestigious element. Is what we were saying?
I would say that he gave us like a clinical dictionary definition first of what whitewash the term could mean, not necessarily the idea behind the term.
Which is really absolving the blame.
Yes,
yeah.
that's the second definition, which was set, which said that it can either be a minority group or person who assimilates to white culture and or forgets about their culture more so to follow into that white way of life, I guess, or they don't necessarily get rid of their culture, but they just practice that whitewashed, I guess, aspect of life.
So Lana, you're gonna have to help me.
Okay,
That was very I love how Moody broke it down. So that helps me get a good.
So this is what I took from it.
What's white?
Well, I think. Well, I mean.
We'll get to that one, I guess.
I think white is just like the concept of white in America is just really how, for all of these years, a certain group of people are able to establish themselves as superior, and I say establish very loosely because obviously if we break down how, the hierarchy was even in place we can see why things were that way. But there was always a sense of like privilege or extra rights, or just things just went a certain way for the white culture in America that other cultures like I got a chance to see and, you know, wanted to follow suit. So I think that when you are, and I'm going to the paper brown bag test, right? So I'm going to, when you're able to not just to simulate, but also be passing or be acceptable, because if you guys are not aware, the brown paper bag test was basically saying, like literally they would hold a brown paper bag to the color of your face or like complexion of your skin, and if you were the color of the paper brown bag or lighter, then you would be considered light skinned and therefore given more rights because you were closer as passing to white than you were if you were darker than the brown paper bag. So for me, when you are fair-skinned, when you have the ability to pass and no one really knows your ethnicity, right? You're like ambiguous when it comes to that. Do you choose in that moment to pick a route that allows you more social privilege, even though said privilege, one, does not belong to you in the way that you're using it, and then two, makes you completely erase your roots or where you come from?
Okay.
I.e., The Imitation of Life, one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
Right.
Me and chatted about that. Now, I'm glad I would like to piggyback off that. We're gonna break this show up into the segments. You know, the different parts. Mm-hmm. Right now, I'd like to kind of assess it in the factor that when you talk about whitewashed, there's the dimension of a group or individuals that can be described as of. When you start talking about a paper bag, now you're also talking about that at some point there was a mulatto group, you know, that we had in our society, that octoroon or different quadroons and different depths or levels of what closer or furtherness from white, or close or further from whiteness it may appeal. That never lasted in our society. I remember there was a moment where we really, where the American culture tried to actually create an actual culture, like as if there was a, you know, a Puerto Rican culture or, you know, a certain other type of whole culture. Well, it never really stuck to becoming a culture, but if you go back in the South, you talk to a lot of blacks, especially when it comes to their ancestors, mulattoes on a lot of birth certificates. You know what I mean? And so coming out of what your point is that paper bag test, mulatto, you know, came out of that paper bag genre, that space.
We're talking about what's acceptable to be considered whitewashed.
Yeah,
just to like streamline the conversation, like a little.
Well, that point, just to streamline that point.
Right,
you know what I mean? Is that is what's acceptable, and after what's acceptable, it started defining it though. Meaning they started giving it a name, started you know, looking at the acceptable factors of, you know, quadroon or octoroon with the acceptable factors. Then they started actually giving it a name. Okay, well, you're a mulatto. Let's take 3 of those perspectives and call it one. Now, that's looked at for the physical aspect of white. Okay, that's a physical aspect of whitewash, right? Now we also have to deal with the ethnicity part of whitewashed. You know, what makes you white. So what stimulated me with this conversation, or stimulated Fibonacci Live to come with this point or this topic and this word, was I was cruising through the YouTube, and I'll get the information. I'll distribute the information later on in this segment. I want to get the complete focus on the audience, and I want to keep everyone engaged. But as I went through the YouTube channel, and it had a discussion in the conversation that was a documentary that was presented by a white male to individuals that participated in the documentary. And the question that he had for the white participants was, what was your ethnic group? What was your nationality? So as they started giving their ethnicities, I'm Scottish, I'm Norwegian, I'm German, I'm Russian, I'm, you know, different forms of Slavic backgrounds, I'm French, I'm Jewish. I mean, we heard every aspect that you can imagine. And some were 1 part, some were 4 parts, you know, but in the end, after he asked that question to each individual, he said, now, how did you go from that to being a white person?
Which
And
is
that
the
and
topic,
that so now we'll get to, like Wordsmith said, we'll get to the urban point of view, because we don't call it whitewash. We call that stuff, we call that shit cooning, jigging. You know what I mean? So we put a different spin on it. It's still, I mean, and that's what the black community, we call that cooning and jigging.
Yeah, be
you
a
know what I mean?
little specific
Really.
there,
Yeah.
just for the audience.
Well, no, that's what we call it. I'm sorry, but it's self-evident.
I mean,
that
we growing up, we used to call it like an Oreo. That's what we called it.
I was gonna say that.
It was like more like an Oreo.
That's in the old days we said Oreo.
No, I know
Now,
what you're saying.
Now, current terms, we
I'm
what
saying
group?
right, because we would say, because like
saying that
growing up, like when it was kids that would be noticeably like black or whatever, and they would act like white, you know, because it was always, because I remember it was always the argument, well, what is considered acting white?
Yes.
Speaking proper, you know, like what? Because if I genuinely like these things, but then it's like, so I remember it being like, it was really a whole debate, but I just remember like those kids were called Oreos. Like, oh, he's an Oreo, or she's an Oreo, you know, like on some black on the outside, white on the inside. But then it came into like, but what is defined as black, which I always thought was an interesting conversation, because sometimes I feel like we associate qualities or characteristics with the white culture that in reality shouldn't necessarily be associated with white culture, because you have white people who do not speak proper English. You have white people who are not educated. You have white people who are not, like, just, this is not isolated to one specific group. So I just always thought that was interesting, that if you have someone who is African American, but they speak, you know, they're extremely proper when they speak, right? The things that they're interested, maybe they don't like rap music, but does that not make them black? Does that, so I just always thought that it was interesting that sometimes such a superficial, like superficial things or characteristics
that
were
are
attached.
Considered white.
Yeah, that were considered white, but in
Attached to
reality,
being
like,
white.
why does that have to be considered? Just me, and I just remember the conversation. Why does that make you whitewash?
Right, because we're talking about the terms, the different kinds of terms.
Right. Yeah.
That's where we all stem from.
Yeah.
Well. Here's the caveat to that. You have Oreo, meaning Oreo is just a product. Is a reflection of the environment that you're in, and outside people just give a criticism or a opinion on it, or meaning that's why you're called an Oreo. That same Oreo will still eat greens, will still eat chicken, as far as stereotypically.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That same Oreo will still meet up with their family on Thanksgiving and still have black things around them, even if they're talking proper. You know what I mean? They might go to a school or a community that has a lot of white people and been raised in that community. So an outside urban person or urban appeal or relative will consider them an Oreo. You know, like you said, well, how is that defined? And then, like I was using the term coon and jigging. Coon and jigging is when you actually, like Wordsmith said, is when you decide to become simulated. See, Oreo is just a reflection of where you are. Just, you know, like we right now, they would consider us talking proper in a lot of places where I'm from. You know, just our dialogue right now here on this set.
Simulated. Can you give me an example of simulation?
Yeah, I was going to go into that part of
No.
it. Because when you start talking about whitewash, now the simulating part is just saying, I'm going to now concentrate and focus on this environment to be aware of this reflection that I am, meaning that I'm talking proper because I'm around a certain dialect of people, but now I don't necessarily choose to now do the things that they're doing every day. You understand what I'm saying? Now, once a person starts identifying themselves as doing the things or participating in activities every day that's outside their culture. You understand what I'm saying? It's outside their culture. That's, like you said, it's sometimes you can run parallel or you can run congruent.
Right.
You can say, I'm carrying my culture and I'm carrying this,
Right.
you know, this experience. Because I call it an experience. You know what I'm saying? Now, how far you take the experience is what we're defining today. We're just compartmentalizing it and we're getting a subjective variable on it. But how far, simulation is this, two-part. A diverse person, and I taught my daughter this, a diverse person is a person that takes their culture, their ethnic concept or dialect, and bring it into another group. Okay, a simulated person is the person that leaves that at the door and shows that other group how they can look and be like that group. That's simulation. Meaning that you're no longer diverse because I don't know what you are. You left that at the door. You left your culture and your identity at the door, so you're not diverse. Diverse is the difference, is the newness that you bring, is the different flavor. It's something that you're adding to something.
Right.
You know, simulation is being like something.
I'm gonna go ahead and interject here as we gonna take a quick break. I have a question about that, Alchemist. So the thing that popped into my mind is a concept that a lot of black folks use is being able to code switching. So
Okay.
Oh,
when
my
I'm in corporate America,
That's funny.
I know how to
Yeah.
talk to them and act this way. I'm not necessarily losing myself, but I can code switch and talk to that. When I'm with the homies, you know what I'm saying, kicking it, whatever the case may be, I can talk and act this way.
Right.
Where does that fit into this? Is that more of a diversity thing, or does that lean more towards the simulation, or is that somewhere in between when you're quote unquote code switching?
Okay,
based upon where you're at.
Now, since you asked the question
Yeah.
directly, to me, code switching is based on the term code.
Okay.
When you at a job, when you're making money, when you're putting yourself in a position to survive and to take care of yourself, and there's standards and codes that's necessary in order to do and produce that job or to obtain what you have to do to survive and eat, then that's to me what we do or what's necessary as far as code switching. When you are in a particular comfortable environment or a casual environment, you can't take that casuality just anywhere.
But see,
Okay.
so from my experience being in corporate America, even though I know how to code switch efficiently, I still
What is code switching?
what we just discussed. Literally having a certain way or demeanor to act or be more, maybe carry yourself more
You
professionally.
learn how to speak the language of who
Right.
you're around.
But my thing is, in my experience, there was a difference between code switching and the need to assimilate to be
yeah.
progressive in this field, because then it comes to a point where I don't want to be the black girl. So even though I'm professional, if I voice grievances, I see that there's something's wrong, I have to be conscious of how I project it or communicate this, because if I give the slightest inch or perception of an attitude, I'm now the black girl.
Well,
Even though I've seen other people be more emotionally unstable in communicating whatever issues they had, let me do it. Oh, Lana has the attitude.
So there's an extra weight that goes with that. Brianna,
How do I have an attitude?
Yeah, go ahead, Brianna, make your point, then we'll go to commercial.
Okay.
Or break.
I was just gonna say, there's actually Big Mouth is a series that I like to watch. It's very funny, and it has to do with puberty.
It's on
and
Netflix,
It's an
right?
adult show.
Yeah.
Yes, it's on Netflix. I encourage everyone to watch after, because there's a particular episode that's code switching, and Missy, she's like half black, half Jewish, I believe. I don't exactly remember, don't quote me. But they like have a song and dance through the episode, and she's talking about how she's code switching, and it's convenient for her, not only just for her survival, but to her to connect with her black side, because she wasn't whitewashed, but she didn't know about the other side of her. So I find that to be very personal and hilarious, but also I think that code switching, where it fits to answer Wordsmith's question, is that it's not necessarily between anything, but it's necessary, and that doesn't define being either white or black or not, or whatever minority. I think it has to do with the way that society and America has set up our standards, and where whitewashing comes into those standards.
Exactly.
That's a good
So
point.
just to kind of sum that
So
up
it sounds
a
like
little
it's a very layered thing. And I'm happy, I'm
Very
excited where this
layered.
conversation is going. A lot of nuances here. Shout out to Denzel in the chat as always, holding it down. Lots of great feedback.
Shout out to Denzel.
Yeah.
You got to give a shout out to Denzel.
Yeah,
He always hold it
definitely.
down.
Great feedback, great feedback. One new thing too, Galleria de Arte is actually introducing a brand new concept to its patrons, the ability to enjoy the space while eating whatever you want. So you'll be able to order from your favorite restaurant via DoorDash, Grubhub, etc. during our events. So for more information, please go to www.thegalleriadearte.com.
Dope.
And we'll be back in a few minutes.
Dope. Code switching.
Yeah.
I was shining on the city lights. All this doubt around me, then but look, I got it right. Don't you try to hit me, now you live a petty life. All those nights I laid awake, I pray for better life. Now I wake up with a baddie like I said I might. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. You been stuck is where you at because you never tried. Want a better life, I had to try, I bet it right. Yeah, I just took a test and yeah, let me write. Look, I just took a test and yeah, I rolled the dice. Yeah, women, I'll be bad because the fuck was nice. But yeah, I must admit that this ain't overnight. I just hit the double with the jackpot. I'm in the snow, this in New England, but I'm dying high. Now I'm addict for the music when I can't stop. Ain't gon' let me anywhere to ask me. Ask a favor, what a shout out to gas me. Really, they ain't take a risk, but want the outcome. Then asking how come. I was shining on the city lights. All this doubt around me, then but look, I got it right. Don't you try to hit me, now you live a petty life. All those nights I laid awake, I pray for better life. Now I wake up with a baddie like I said I might. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. You been stuck is where you at because you never tried. Want a better life, I had to try.
I'm all in this. I call the shots, I never call it quits. Trust my intuition, better writing, bitch, it often is. Seen too many others come and go, they had the wrong intent. Do it out of love and never for it, then I watch it get bigger than expected. No second guess it, I let it set it. It's God's plan, we out here only accepting blessings. I'm stuck with it, this mindset is terminal. In and out different terminals, leveling up is personal. And I already made it, y'all can miss me. I smack my girl's ass, tell her pinch me. It's hard to believe I made something from nothing. No hindsight discussions, I've been writing, I love it.
City lights, all this doubt around me, then but look, I got it right. Don't you try to hit me, now you live a petty life. All those nights I laid awake, I pray for better life. Now I wake up with a baddie like I said I might. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. You been stuck is where you at because you never tried. Want a better life, I had to try, I bet it right.
Sé que no se puede, pero quiero verte una última vez. Sé que tú no quieres y aunque yo te entiendo no puedo ceder a la idea de no volverte a ver, a saber que no te va a tener. Yo no te quiero perder, aunque sepa que lo nuestro no va a volver. No queda nada que hacer, entre tú y yo todo va a desaparecer. Pareciera mentira que estuviste en mi vida, y aunque duró un segundo yo creí que tú eras mía.
It was interesting. Very interesting.
Fibonacci Live, back in
Yeah.
effect. This Alchemist here with Lana Moody,
poppin'.
Wordsmith. And the topic of the day of the week,
Both.
ethnicity, from ethnicity to white, and the word is whitewashed.
Whitewashed. Yeah.
And we was just chopping it up on break, guys. You know, check out the gallery, check out the images, subscribe to our channel, Fibonacci Live on YouTube, our Facebook, our Instagram. Check out our websites. We have good product. T. Murph was funny as hell too, looking ass.
He was.
You know what I'm saying? But Lana was breaking down something in regards to.
This ties back into what was that conversation we had when we was on 106.3 about being biracial?
Yes.
Right? Okay. So I remember having this conversation with my aunt in my granddaddy's house. R.I.P. Granddaddy, we miss you. But and she was explaining to me, like, well, because I always referred to myself as being black because I grew up in an African American household. I was raised with my mom. My mom's black. My mom and my grandma's like civil rights. Like, it couldn't get more Afrocentric in my house.
Right.
But I'm really half black, half Mexican. So my aunt, I remember when I was 15, sat me down and was explaining to me, because she's in corporate America, big wig, but going to the code or switching code or whatever. But to me, it was like, there's one thing with switching code, but like, you do it too well. Like, I always just thought, like, you know what I mean? You do it, like, you real good. Like, I'm questioning, is this code? Is this like, what's happening right now? Okay, so anyways, she explained to me that I have a unique opportunity. And I was like, what do you mean? And we were talking about the movie Imitation of Life, because I keep telling y'all I'm obsessed with this movie. The first one.
That
not
was
the
a
second
heavy
one.
hitter.
The first one. The one with Lana Turner in it. That's the one. But the
movie
first one is good too, though.
That was a heavy hit. That movie
It was good. It was really good. So she explained to me basically that when it's time for me to enter the job market, specifically in the corporate world, that it might work to my benefit to use my first last name and to shorten my first name. And I was like, well, I'm like, why would I do that? And she was like, well, because, sweetheart, sometimes they throw out resumes with names that sound a certain way. And she was like, you can pass for whatever you want to pass for. Like, you can't pass for white, but you don't necessarily, like, she flat out, you don't necessarily have to pass for black. She was like, I'm not saying to go back on how you were raised or who you are. But what I'm saying is understand that sometimes in this world, it requires you to be more perceptive of your surroundings and move accordingly.
Now,
and I was like, whoa, that was a lot for 15. I'm trying to go to prom. Like, what?
That shouldn't have been at 15, but
at
you know,
15.
for you to be able to absorb
was
that.
At 15.
But I want to take that point and kind of take it a couple steps back and distinguish the difference and how I feel, my opinion. Code switching does not necessarily, in my point of view, means that you give up or become simulated.
Correct, yes.
And like you were saying, is it really code switching if you're so good at it that you actually start now chopping down parts of your ethnic culture, which is your name, who you're from. Once you start diffusing some of that, are you, because code switching is a means to an end. That's why I said it's such a subjective variable. It's still a means to an end. And if you even tack writing, when you're writing and you're communicating with affiliate marketers, or if you're communicating with companies that you're selling product to or you're doing business with, then that's tact writing. Tact writing is code. You would consider that code switching if you were having a conversation, though.
Yeah.
But if you put it on words, it's just tact writing. It's communicating properly. It's speaking the same language. You know, that's really that's where I draw the line on saying and identifying code switching, meaning that you're able to switch to another code. When I go into a black community, I know what you tweaking mean. But then I know what, man, Joe, you tweaking.
Yeah.
But then I know, man, you tweaking. That's code. We
Same
know.
phrase,
We
three
same
different ways.
phrase 3 different ways. So that's a language. So code switching to me is when you're communicating, and then if you're in a community or corporate atmosphere and you have to code. if your boss or the department head or the client that you're trying to serenade, if they speak a certain language, then in code, well, then you're going to shorten up certain words,
Right.
or you're going to explain things a little more in depth, or a little or more, or fulfill, or fill in the
Yeah.
gaps, or you're going to shorten things.
You're saying you're able to adapt.
But
Because
see-
the word that comes up
it's-
when I
it's-
think
it's-
about code switching and
Adapting
how
is
you're
part of it.
how
Yes.
you're explaining it is like the ability to adapt in the environment and what's best and what's in my best interest.
I feel like it's finding middle ground, but still keeping who you are intact. But
Yeah.
then my question is, and let's talk about the concept of code switching and having the code you supposedly are required to match the code of the environment. Let's talk about jobs who require certain type of hairstyles. A lot of times in sports, in high school, a lot of minority boys are required to cut their hair, whether it's dreads, whether it's braids. Even certain companies will not hire you if you are coming to work, regardless if you're qualified to do the job or not, if you look a certain way. Now, my question is, what part of that is code, and what part of that is...
That's pulling it out of code switching, because.
But what I'm saying is, but it's perceived as if it is code. That's not. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
no, I understand. The reason why I say it's not is because once you sign off on it and say, I'm walking into this environment, then you speak and then speak the
Then you
language.
have to speak the language.
Don't get the job, or don't ask for the job. If they say, well, we don't want that type. We want you to dress, or then it's not code switching. This what it is doing what this uniform requires to get this job. Now, once you get in that job, you still have to speak a language. Just because they told you to cut your hair or do that and they hired you, you still now have to communicate properly with people. You still have to go up in the corporate ladder. You still have to learn how to do things. You know what I mean? So
but I guess
communication,
what I'm saying
more or
is,
less.
but the fact that that's even required to get in the building, what I'm saying is,
She's saying
if
that's
you
not
have
code switching.
It's not code switching.
You're saying that's what that. Now, can I just
Oh, oh.
interject here? That's
Yeah.
what whitewashing.
in my opinion,
That's where the conversation goes towards what the word of the week is, whitewashed, and how code switching in that aspect is what he's saying, kind of signing off, and that's whether you're trying to get this position or whether
I mean, let me clear up my point. The topic is whitewash. We're going to get to that. We're going to get more in depth in that topic, but we're going to clean up the code switching thing so we can move on. Okay. First of all, Wordsmith, can you give us the definition of code switching?
Oh, let me pull
You
that
get a
up.
moment. But right now, until he get that definition, my interpretation of code switching in general, because it doesn't just speak for the corporate world, it's a term, right? So code switching. If you going in the hood, you code switching. If you know what I mean? If you hanging, talking, communicating with dude like that, you go over here with dude. That's code switching. So it's a communication is how I identify it. An ability to communicate a certain way on deck in a critical moment, or to be able to switch.
Right.
Here's definition here. So the use of one dialect, register, accent, or language variety over another, depending upon social or cultural context, to project a specific identity. The modifying of one's behavior, appearance, etc., to adapt to different socio-cultural norms.
So it even includes what Lana's aspect of the physical.
Well, what I thought code switching is not code switching.
That's
So
interesting.
let me just go ahead and say
I'm not gonna lie. I did not think that code switching included your physical appearance, because it's
I didn't
something
either,
that
but
we're
it makes
always
sense.
focused on.
Yeah,
is
it's verbal.
It's verbal.
and
the
I'm
code.
and I'm saying that
It's a
because
whole-
I had
whole thing.
I
It's
had
a whole
a
package.
job opportunity at Hollister. I remember this interview.
I got so many stories.
So
I'm
I
already
sat
right
down
there.
and I got the job, right? But this man looked at me and from head to toe. You can't wear braids. You can't wear crazy colors. You cannot have acrylics longer than this. You cannot do. But when I was listening to the things that were required of me, none of these things matched what I associated with ethnically.
So you would have had to not only code switch, but at that point you would have had to choose being white. Okay.
Now do you see where I'm going with?
I feel like that's
and
a
there's
very good point.
And I remember even I had the first black principal in middle school in Maryville, Indiana. Shout out to Mr. Joyner. I remember he got fired because the conversation was, why do the boys who are minority required to cut their hair for basketball because it was in dreads or braids, when white boys who just grew their hair out were not required to do the same. Like, he got fired over this. This was the whole thing. So I'm saying this to say, I remember the school board, I remember parents and superintendents fighting to the death to talk about this is code conduct. But the question is, but does this prevent them from doing what's required of the code?
Now, can I interject now? I think I get to stand on my point now. It depends on what you sign off on. You have a choice, meaning that it's discrimination, right? Because that's what, because these words start sliding. They start sliding into different foundations. That's why I'm trying to cut it off at the path right now. That's why I'm like, okay, there has to be a finite point. Okay, code switching, like I'm gonna go to, is when you decide to sign on. When you sign on, you know what I mean? If they say cut your hair and you cut your hair, then you chose to. If they say wear this to get the job, if you would have taken the job.
You're saying code switching is a choice regardless.
It's the bottom line.
And
code switching is a choice.
That I agree.
Now, once you make that choice into code switching, now you have to speak the language. You know, so
and you can still be discriminated against.
Well, that's a different.
And that just to connect both of you guys.
Sometimes I feel like they are in the same gray area. That's my point.
They definitely are.
We should save that for another topic. Another topic for another Sunday. We gotta talk about the same thing.
And it's not that it's just in a gray area. One needs the other. They seem to be binary.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's more of a binary product. And I think that's why I said, okay, I get to stand on the fact that first you sign off. Once you sign off, you know, now you can say, well, if I don't sign off, I'm going to suffer this way, that, or the third. Hey, that's your choice. Once you started talking about individuals shortening their last names, like Antonio Ramales or Romulez, which is Tony Romo. You know, that's an example to me. If I had to use a person or an athlete or someone that we can commonly know, I didn't know Tony Romo wasn't Tony Romo. You know what I mean? I thought Tony Romo was Italian.
But the thing is,
I was taking it back to your point about shortening the name and getting into how most white cultures are victims of whitewash.
Yeah, white culture.
Ethnicity.
That's the next. I'm just being funny because that's the next thing we're gonna talk about.
Well, it's ethnicity. it's really white ethnicity. You're right. To be corrected,
right.
It's not white culture. It's white ethnicity.
Yeah.
So when you start talking about changing your name, shortening your name, like your auntie said, was that your aunt?
Yeah.
Like your aunt said. Now that's when you become whitewashing.
But I guess, for me, the interesting thing is because I did an experiment because this is me in my sociality bag when I get bored. I submitted to the same job and I used, because I have two last names, Hispanic, I have two last names, right? So I did one time what she said. I shortened my first name, which my first name isn't even extremely ethnic, like it's not, but I shortened my first name and I used Lori. And then I used Aguilar instead of Johnson, right? And then I would submit L'Oreal and Johnson. Johnson is obvious. It sounds like
it's black.
I got more hits back from Lori Aguilar than I did from L'Oreal Johnson, even though my resume had the same qualifications. The only thing I changed was my phone number and my email. Wow.
But
so it was just interesting. So let's talk about now let's go back to survival, right? Because we said code switching is a concept of survival. Okay, now I can get this job for surviving that pays $20,000 more annually, that's salaried, with the last name Aguilar.
See, hold on.
Or I can get the job that pays.
Before we go too deep, this is not about code switching. See, this is about whitewash is when you continue to go forward with this mission of giving up you go from this shorten your name to this shorten your name to this shorten your name to everything. Now how you do and move is for the perks.
But see,
my point is when everything become for the perks, now you're whitewashed.
But I guess my question is, but if you're never allowed the opportunity to begin, I'm not even allowed the opportunity to code switch if I use a certain name. That's what I'm saying. So this is where I deduce it back to survival, just on some.
But it's not about code switching. It's
I
about, you know what I mean?
I think we should take this time to have Wordsmith interject and give us a little cap for going into whitewash? Cause
No. No. Really, we're missing something that we have to include. That's really what I'm trying to get to. I've been trying to wrestle. It's not that. It's just that we're taking this word and we're compounding code switch, which is code switch is fine, but code switch is not the topic. The topic is whitewashed. Okay, and we're using code switch, like Wordsmith said, as a vessel for whitewash.
I'm saying
there's things before you get to code switches, which is discrimination. You know what I mean? There's all these factors, but we're talking about the point with whitewashed is when however you feel about those factors, you've gotten comfortable with them.
What I'm saying is codes.
We want to wrap it up too when we get to
Yeah, what I'm saying is code switching is based out of whitewash. That's my point. So there comes to a point where the code switching it comes from where? Whitewash. That was my point.
So you saying whitewashing is the umbrella?
That's so we can call code switching is it, but where does it go? What I'm saying is why are these standards? Yeah, you sign off of it. Yeah, this is part of the code. But where does said code come from? What is the influence of the code? That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's where we're.
Last word, alchemist.
Well, that's what I'm trying to. That's where Wordsmith is understanding what I'm getting to. I'm trying to get to that point and we're stopping at code switching as if code switching is the basis of it, and it's not. Whitewash is the basis of it. So how do you get to whitewash? You give up to whitewash by giving up your ethnicity. Giving up your ethnicity. Now, code switching is a form of it. It's just a form. That's why I'm like, why we got stuck on the word, but that's code switching. It's about 4 other things.
Right.
So we keep saying code switching, code switching. That's just one particular form of giving yourself up. There's survival that comes inside code switching, right? There's non-survival that comes inside code switching, where people are just perking for the privilege. So most white ethnicities, meaning the European ethnicity, was given up and has transformed or transcended into white. Okay, why did they do that? They did that for the privilege. So it's all for the privilege. Now you're gonna code switch where like you said, where is this going? It's going to the privilege. You know what I'm saying? How did it get there? It got there chasing the privilege.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Now there's byproducts in between, like Wordsmith said, there's byproducts in between, which is discrimination, it's codes, but ultimately you're giving up something for a privilege.
Right.
Ultimately. And all ethnics, cultures, and groups are giving up something for privilege, and that privilege isn't even a culture. And we'll get back to that one in the next segment.
Oh man, I'm on the edge of my seat right now. I want to hit you all with some current events. So have y'all heard what happened with Jason Van Dyke?
No.
So Jason Van Dyke, the police officer, the former police officer, Chicago police officer who murdered Laquan McDonald, he's gonna be released on February 3rd. So he was sentenced to 81 months, roughly 7-ish years, but he did three years.
But we knew he was gonna do 3.
Yeah, 3 years, 9 days. You know what I'm saying? So he'll be out February 3rd. He's looking forward to having a peaceful existence of anonymity. So he gonna try to stay under the radar.
Is he gonna change his name?
I don't know.
Code switching in the judicial system.
Man,
Everybody does it. It's just what lengths does each ethnicity have to go to get it accomplished.
Yeah. So
We
yeah.
like to code switch it again.
She on that. She on that.
No, because I'm not on it. It's just because even when you talk about white people, or when you really, it's the same. In my mind, if you have to give up a part of you in any type of way, you're still doing it. It's just how obvious, how deep are the depths.
Yeah.
How deep you have to swim in the pool. You're still doing it. You may be waiting in 3 feet, or you may be waiting in 9 feet to get this shit done, but you're still waiting.
Yeah. So stay tuned for more news on Jason Van Dyke, because he'll be out next month. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's really
That's very interesting.
Yeah. I want to remind you all, everybody watching, check out Green Book Enterprises for your business needs. They specialize in commercial marketing, social media management, branding, and web development.
Yes.
For more information, contact them at greenbookenterprises@gmail.com.
You want to get your brand up? You want to stop looking? You want to stop looking partial? You want to get partial? Get complete and have a real business approach, man. You want to sharpen your stuff up and stop looking like everybody else. You better get in contact with Green Book Enterprise.
Sure. We'll see you all after the next break.
Deuces.
Let's do it.
So no, what we're hashing out on.
watching me pull up across the room. I think you like the view. You gonna make a move. I don't make this easy for you. It's not intentional. I'm not responsible. I never played a game. But if it's in my face, I don't make it easy for you. Everyone is an option. I don't think that's a problem. No, my eyes make me sweet, but most people don't fuck with me. I don't make this easy for you. I don't make this easy for you. And now is the time between you and I. Get out of your head, step into my mind, be that easy for you. I could be that easy for you. Baby, I like to learn. How do you wanna feel? Tell me your fantasies as you discover me. Can I make this easy for you? I wanna make it easy for you. And it's not intentional. I'm not responsible. I never play the games. But if you're in my way, I don't make this easy for you. I won't be that easy for you. Everyone is an option. I don't think that's a problem. No, my eyes make me sweet, but most people don't fuck with me. I don't make this easy for you. I don't make this easy for you. And now's the time between you and I. Get out of your head, step into my mind, be that easy for you. I could be that easy for you. And now's the time between you and I. Get out of your head, step into my mind, be that easy, be that easy, be that easy for you.
She said that she hate me, I hate me too. I can always tell when you're lying, girl, you're see-through. All these miles away, yeah, I just wanna see you. Baby, give me good face, she hit me like seafood. Remember when I saw you, hi, it's nice to meet you. Know my old girl salty, she just wanna be you. I'm a dog, no Maltese, I don't wanna leave you. Once you're right here, I just don't wanna mistreat you, no. Cause I've been a douchebag before, baby girl, I don't wanna repeat. She just won't please me, she look in my eyes, told me why are you bleeding? And I don't even know how to answer. I take these drugs to my bladder. She says she noticed a pattern, she say I look gorgeous, I tell her I'm flattered. But I hate my reflection, when I look at you all I see is perfection. I'm so depressed and I don't know the reason, just wanna feel better. Hate my reflection, when I look at you all I see is perfection. I'm so depressed and I don't know the reason, just hope I feel better. Don't know the reason, just hope I feel better. I just hope I feel better. You said that you love me, don't know if it's still true. Hate it when you're not here, love it when I'm with you. You say you don't trust me, all the shit we've been through. Why you always upset? I don't really get you, I don't really get you. Why should I always gotta be so stressful? Baby, can you tell me why are you so vengeful? I don't understand you, I can't live without you, but I can't fucking stand you. I'm just so obsessed, I should take better reflection. I'm so depressed and I don't know the reason. Just hope I feel better. Don't know the reason, just hope I feel better. I just hope I feel better.
Yes, sir. Fibonacci Live, we back. It's getting heated. It was popping off on the break. We hashtag. we hashtag.
Not really.
No, it was fun though. We expanded our
debates.
point of view. But this Fibonacci Live, you guys subscribe to our channel. I'm here, Alchemist, with Lana Moody, Wordsmith, and the word for the week, which is whitewashed, and the topic is from ethnicity to white. And we really got in depth about this topic because of the variations of the topic. We kind of got stuck on a part of it, which was code switching. We discussed the variations of code switching, but I wanted to bring it back into the true essence of why we brought the topic up and the boundaries and how what was considered whitewashed and the variations of that whitewash. And the first formality that I like to illustrate is the fact that whitewash normally and ideally is for individuals with pale skin or lighter skin. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when we start using the word whitewashed, if we connect that to the color, people of color or color of hue, that's why we might use the term sellout, or we might use the term as jigging or cooning or other things. We don't really use the term whitewash. Now they all weren't congruent, but in particular, this show is not to get too in depth in the fact that whitewashing is something that carries over into other communities and products and cultures, but we're talking about ending up white. And that was what we want to stick to. We like to really stick to our topics and really stay structured on our points, and we want to say, well, how can you end up white? During that process of whitewash, there are collateral damage. There's victims of circumstances, which is usually the minority group. You know what I mean? Those are that's just collateral damage. That's just victims of circumstances, from discrimination to selling out to trying to survive. It's a lot of stuff in between there. But we want to get more finite on if I'm white, if I consider myself white, be it a white Latin, be it Spaniard, be it Jewish, be it Irish, going from being called an Irish nigger to being called white and having no ideology of your crest. If someone walks up to you,
white Hispanic, that's my favorite.
Yeah. So when somebody walk up to you, I don't hear people say, yes, I'm Irish American. I don't hear any individuals say, I'm Jewish American. I don't hear people say, I'm Norwegian American. I don't hear people say, I'm German American. I just hear people say, I'm white. And then I got some things in me. So that's why I'm really passionate about this conversation. I want to streamline this with Lana and separate the compartments of discrimination code, different codes amongst each other, different codes and environments, and the fact that ending up into a white position. And that position is primarily comes from European ethnicity. Now, we all understand that out of that European ethnicity, there's a lower group. There's a group that's underneath. There's a group that's not as, that's not the dominant society. So when we start talking about the non-dominant society groups, we do identify them like we talked the first part of this show. That's really what we discussed, the non-dominant parts of the groups and how they're affected by whitewash or how they appeal in a whitewash fashion. Now this part of the segment, we're going to get more acclimated on the European ethnicity of whitewashed and what led the European ethnicity of whitewash to some of their lack of moral fiber or their lack of identity. Thus, throughout that transaction or transition, like Lana, you said, it's easier for you to fall into that loop. It's all these factors that make it easier for that group to chase that privilege or be a beneficiary from that privilege. So, I mean, I really want to recap this. Did I do a good job, Wordsmith?
You did an excellent job. You're on point.
You know, because it was a really passionate conversation, and we wanted to really continue. We have these conversations because we want to express ourselves, and we want to provide information for the public, and we always provide very, very quality information to help take that information, turn that information to knowledge, execute that knowledge into your life, and transform that into some wisdom. So we first start with accurate or really information that we deem is necessary. And the first part of this was the fact that we are in a dominant white society. So in that dominant white society, we realized that some of the 90% of that dominant white society has given up an aspect of their ethnicity in a large capacity.
Agreed.
You know, so I thought it was interesting when for white people to say, well, imagine someone taking something from you. Thus, the non-dominant society, the minorities that have been victimized, disenfranchised, enslaved. Well, a lot of those people have influenced the world. They became Michael Jordans. They became the pacemaker on music that we listen to, the pacemaker on the outfits that we wear, the slang that we use on TikTok. Well, that's all coming from that group. You understand what I'm saying? That group still, despite of someone taking their identity, they're still expressing their identity. But then the group that took the identity as the group now that we're finding out has less identity, because in order to hold on to the position, you have to go for the privilege. And that's when you come in, Lana, and you start breaking down the code. So if you can't act in that code,
no, because to me it's more of a trifecta. Like as we maybe this is why I keep circling back to the code of conduct with whitewash and discrimination, because they all have what's that the grid, that the Venn diagram.
Yeah.
They all have this gray area that allows them, in my opinion, to coexist as one. So for me, it's like, oh, my identity was okay, well then release the privilege. Like, what am I understand, I'm not gonna say I understand it, but at the end, if we're going back, no one gives, that's my point. So it's like, oh, I have no idea. Okay, then give up the privilege that is associated with it. In other words, you had a conscious choice, whoever did, but not only that, you had the choice to maintain it. You had the choice to continue it. You had the choice to still uphold said values, and I guarantee you, when it's in your benefit, you use said privilege. So I'm sorry if I don't have a tier because you don't know who the fuck you are. Like, bro, I'm just, it doesn't, no, because it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't, oh, we have no identity. Like,
can I tell you how to make it make sense?
No.
When someone,
I don't get it.
When someone doesn't have identity, they're very destructive. Hold on. I mean, real talk. If you have a person that has no identity of themselves, but then you gave them the power. Let's say you kicking it with some people, and you know the one person that you kicking it with kind of ratchet, don't make good decisions, but then you ran across someone and they gave you $100 until you were 10 years old, and you said, hey, give it to that person. That person's gonna make the decisions. You really wouldn't want that person that don't have no identity to really be making those decisions. But unfortunately, we have to acknowledge that if this group, whether you have pity for them or not, if they're the ones that also dominate some infrastructures in our society, and they're saying, hey, you know, my lack of identity is causing me to be a little immoral.
I don't agree with that.
It's causing me to be a little immoral.
To me, but in my your decisions and the decisions of generations with whatever culture that you associate yourself with is the identity. The issue is we don't want, or the group, the majority, does not want to identify or put out the real identity of said culture. In my opinion, that's been the biggest. No, there's an identity.
Lost their identity.
No, there's an identity. They just don't want to admit what the identity is.
Well, here's the thing. What were you saying?
Can I give some real life examples of what both of you are talking about? In my personal experience, I've had a family member say, okay, well, that's why I raised my kids white.
Yep.
And it was something very shocking to me. Because it was like during a holiday, so we were all a little happy, you know what I'm saying? But she was a little bubbly, you know? But the fact that she had mentioned that really made me sit there and think, okay, well, at what point did these family members make the choice to continue with that? Because not only were they given and taught that they have privilege by not even being white or in any sort of gray area of being white, but they were told you should go for that because of
Absolutely.
now where
There's a prize.
now where you come in with the word that he used, power, which I think is very important because she was teaching them power and she was using whiteness and she was relating whiteness to what the other three things that you had mentioned, like wisdom, knowledge, all those things, because without being white, I'm not apparently, in her opinion, I'm not able to acquire those things, or it won't be easy for me, or I won't get everything out of life because of whatever maybe what she was told. And again, this is something that I would like to mention too. It's interesting that's generational too, because and this goes back to even my personal culture and how when I was reading about it, finding out more about my people, and I noticed that they had that decision. They had that decision in history. Okay, well, you can either choose this power or you don't have to choose the power, but you're not going to get it, and your life's going to be harder, and we're not going to fuck with you. Excuse my French. But we're not going to mess with you now because that's what you're choosing. Cool, stick to your culture, share with your people, but we'll see you in a couple days. We'll see you in a couple of days when we ransack your entire village and take your people, and all the pretty ones are white, and that's what we're going to call them. And then now you're going to have colorism in your culture embedded in your culture forever. And that was something
like
that I
to
just
me,
had to bring
you
up.
choosing to be
Drop
white
that
is
mic.
more of like a career choice. Like that's more of a career choice, and who do you identify with? It's like you identify with the truth of what you associate.
And that's where the choice comes in. That's what I'm saying.
But I got a question.
And that's
But I got a question for both of y'all. What about the 40-year-old white person who's 50, 60 years removed from what his Italian family were doing? Now all of a sudden he's born around little black people, he's born around some Latinos. So as far as connecting to his crest and connecting to Italy or whatever part of the Italian culture he's from, he's more embedded with a different culture now. So when you start saying, though this person didn't give up anything, this person was raised to say I'm white.
And that's the
you know
other,
I'm saying the caveat of it.
it.
I'm saying here's the caveat to this, because I've asked questions to white people. Some are just raised privilege, period, and they click into the thing that give them the power, that gives them the things that they want.
But to me, that's still a choice.
No. You explained it. By them being white alone separates them by not being a choice.
But there is a choice because when you're able to identify, when you're able to identify that if I take advantage of said privilege, that point it becomes a conscious.
But there's some people that's cognitive, that's dissonant, not cognitive, but there's dissonant. There's some people that don't realize that is what I'm trying to explain. I'm saying everyone out there, every white person out there don't even realize that they're privileged to the magnitude that they are.
I don't believe that they realize that they're privileged to the magnitude they are, but I believe it's a lie for them to say they don't know that they're privileged in any type of way.
They're saying they're privileged.
Right.
From the documentary that they did, they said, I know that I'm privileged. And he said, well, describe what white is. Well, first of all, they said, well, how did you go from ethnicity to white? They said, well, my family came over here, and then my mom, to get the job and to do this, they started shortening their names, so they got in certain positions, and then they started using the privilege. Then after a while, we just started associating with white because the country, this is how they jumped, this is what the other factors. A lady said, I went to a bank, and me and my husband didn't even have enough, we didn't have a job. And we wanted to buy a home. And they gave us money to buy a home.
They didn't have any kind of credentials to get it.
So some of these people are just like, no. Here's the privilege for you, and it's a war. It's a war against the minorities when you give another group privileges and perks without them asking. Because you got to keep in mind, at some point, these people are getting them without asking.
It's not whether they're getting them without asking. It's whether they're aware that it is privilege in some type of way. What if they are? But then it's a conscious choice. If you are aware that hear me out. If you are aware that when you get pulled over or your 17-year-old white passing
one lady said
hear me out, gets pulled over and you know that you're not going to have the
Yeah.
same concerns that a African American 17-year-old mother is about her little boy that gets pulled over, you are acknowledging at somewhere there's some type of inequality. Whether you know how deep it goes, that's
See, now
that's
you're talking
BS.
about. Now you're talking
because what I'm
see,
saying
now
is,
you're
it's,
talking about-
I didn't ask for these things. But if you're aware and you know that these things are happening, then is there what conversation?
So you taking
is
the conversation
brought- I'm
to a
not.
different
No,
area.
what I'm saying is it's I have pretty privilege. I'm not stupid. I know that. But guess what? I'm aware of said pretty privilege, and when I'm in certain situations or I see that something's not happening, I've chosen to communicate when this is not what I want for myself, because I understand, or I may speak up for somebody else because I understand a privilege for me. It may not always be the best thing for myself. I don't agree with it. I understand that. Whether I know how deep my privilege goes is one thing, but I understand that there's privilege there, and in some way I'm proactive about it. If you understand that there's privilege there and in no way you're proactive about it, and then you want me to sit there and say, or not me, but just then you say, oh, I have no identity, hold on, but I know that there's privilege, but I don't ask for it. How are we even able to define that there's a group of things that is set aside just for you and your skin color? At some point, we're acknowledging as a whole that there is an inequality.
What
We're
I
gonna need
think,
to go to a break soon. Is there any? Oh, okay, to stop right now. Are we good to do that? Okay. I know, Alchemist and and Moody.
No, I'm just listening.
It's a lot. It's privilege, the great equalizer. I wrote that note down. Is that what it is? Is that what it all boils down to? That's a rhetorical question. I'm not asking for a response there. So,
Yeah.
man, this last segment is about to be on fire. Galleria de Arte and its affiliate sponsor, Export Fitness, invites you to join our live upcoming events. For more information, please subscribe to our newsletter at www.thegalleriadearte.com.
Oh, yeah.
Deuces.
I've been shining on the city lights. All this doubt around me, then but look, I got it right. Don't you try to hit me, now you live a petty life. All those nights I lay awake, I pray for better life. Now I wake up with a baddie like I said I might. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. You been stuck is where you at because you never tried. Want a better life, I had to try, I bet it right. Yeah, I just took a test and yeah, let me write. Look, I just took a test and yeah, I rolled the dice. Yeah, women I'll be bad because the fuck was nice. But yeah, I must admit that this ain't overnight. I just hit the double with the jackpot. I'm in the snow, this in New England, but I'm dying high. Now I'm an addict for the music when I can't stop. Ain't gon' let me out here where they ask me. Ask a favor, what a shout out, tryna gas me. Really, they ain't take a risk, but want the outcome. Then asking how come. I've been shining on the city lights. All this doubt around me, then but look, I got it right. Don't you try to hit me, now you live a petty life. All those nights I lay awake, I pray for better life. Now I wake up with a baddie like I said I might. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. You been stuck is where you at because you never tried. Want a better life, I had to try.
Put my all in this. I call the shots, I never call it quits. Trust my intuition, bet it's right and bitch, it often is. Seen too many others come and go, they had the wrong intent. Do it out of love and never for it, then I watch it get bigger than expected. Don't second guess it, I let it set it. It's God's plan, we out here only accepting blessings. I'm stuck with it, this mindset is terminal. In and out different terminals, leveling up is personal. And I already made it, y'all can miss me. I smack my girl's ass, tell her pinch me. It's hard to believe I made something from nothing. No hindsight discussions, I've been writing, I love it.
City lights, all this doubt around me, then but look, I got it right. Don't you try to hit me, now you live a petty life. All those nights I lay awake, I pray for better life. Now I wake up with a baddie like I said I might. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. This a better life, you never tried, I bet it right. You been stuck is where you at because you never tried. Want a better life, I had to try, I bet it right.
watching me pull up across the room. I think you like the view. You gonna make a move. I don't make this easy for you. It's not intentional. I'm not responsible. I never played a game. But if it's in my face, I don't make it easy for you. Everyone is an option. I don't think that's a problem. No, my eyes make me sweet, but most people don't fuck with me. I don't make this easy for you. I don't make this easy for you. And now's the time between you and I. Get out of your head, step into my mind. Be that easy for you. I could be that easy for you. Baby, I like to learn. How do you wanna feel? Tell me your fantasies as you discover me. Can I make this easy for you? I wanna make it easy for you. And it's not intentional. I'm not responsible. I never play the games. But if you're in my way, I don't make this easy for you. I won't be that easy for you. Everyone is an option. I don't think that's a problem. No, my eyes make me sweet, but most people don't fuck with me. I don't make this easy for you. I don't make this easy for you. And now's the time between you and I. Get out of your head, step into my mind. Be that easy for you. I could be that easy for you. And now's the time between you and I. Get out of your head, step into my mind. Be that easy, be that easy, be that easy for you.
Welcome back to Fibonacci Live.
Yep.
Smoke in the gallery right now. It's steaming in here. Here, Alchemist, here every Sunday between 3 and 4 CP time with Lana and Moody and Wordsmith.
Boy.
But we still drop it. It's worth it. So it's not like you're losing anything out of this. And subscribe to our Fibonacci Live YouTube, our Instagram, our Twitter.
Twitter.
Tweet. Oh man, you showing your
Twitter.
age. You showing your age.
No, I want to say Twitch. I want to say
Twitter.
Oh,
We don't
okay.
have a Twitter.
So,
thank
you know, but we might get a Twitter in a minute. You know what I'm saying? Hey, it's McDowell's, McDonald's.
Oh my God.
But
That's funny. Go watch that movie. If you know, you know.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, they got the sesame seed bun. You know what I mean? But
That's funny. We got the bun with
We
the
got the sesame seed
Yeah,
on
hey,
TikTok. We got
hey,
the regular
bro,
buzz
we
fry.
gonna make it money hop
buns
up
with
in here.
the sesame
But-
seeds.
We are closing out this segment with What's Capping. And Moody leads the topic of What's Capping for the week, Moody. So what's capping out here in the world of social media, the real world? What's popping? What's capping?
Okay, so that sounded like an intro to a fake news reporter. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Moody. I'm doing the What's Cappin' segment,
You're
which,
Moody?
which if
Really?
you didn't know, it has to do with anything that's up and trending, or that we know that is either like how the TikTok video guy, he says cap or slap. He tests things out, and he either says if it's cap or if he gets slapped if he's wrong. So I'm not getting slapped, but I am going to talk about some of the things that I think are cap, and one of those, particularly in social media right now, on TikTok, because it is the biggest thing for platform as far as right now goes, and it's gonna have to be the Bbl epidemic for me. It's two of them. I couldn't choose. It was gonna be BBLs or it was gonna be the fake disorders, because I think those are just trending, and it's something that's definitely a whole lot of cap.
So what's cap is BBLs?
What's cap is that everything that you see on the internet is not real.
No.
And it's not. And
It's not?
what's portrayed, especially on TikTok, and these 30-second videos of this girl that took 2 months to make this TikTok, because that's how you got to save the video, and then you get to add to the video, and then you get to add more videos to that. It's a process.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. So when I started seeing all these things of, like, as far as plastic surgery goes, it's just like, wow. It makes it seem so fast. It makes it seem so glamorous, and we all know about society standards.
You know what? I'm right. I mean, as we conclude that point, the what's cap segment, but I gotta hop in and agree with you. It's like and I'm into fitness, and when you all of a sudden see the perfectly round ass, you know what I mean? And
do
then,
the legs match the thighs?
Then you see and you see the arms are wiggling, but the booty's super tight. It's like, what motion did you do in your life to get your butt so round, but then your arms are wiggling? You know what I mean? And your thighs aren't tight.
I would like
to it's kind of like,
I would also like to say that I have nothing against plastic surgery. I have nothing against body modifications. I love piercings and tattoos, and I'm very much into art stuff.
No, but stop capping.
But
tell us what went wrong.
I think that being real is something that we don't feel like we have to do, because I mean, it's TikTok. You may not meet me in real life.
My thing is,
and I'm cute, and this is my body now after 3 weeks.
My thing is like you said, I don't have any issues with body modification.
Right.
However, it's some things you can get on clearance. Body modifications, no, I'm like dead ass. Like, body modifications are not one of them. Like, on some real, because it's so many women that are, it's women that are dying. Like, literally, they are dying under the knife because they're trying to uphold a standard, and they're doing it by any cost. Prior to the BBL, people were getting ass shots in basements and didn't even know what was getting injected in. Like, this is a thing. So I'm saying this to say, whatever you want to do, you can go as extreme as you want. That's on you.
Yeah.
But please understand, there are some things that you should not play with. There are certain parts of your body that you only get one time. There are things that you cannot replace on your body. There are things that you cannot make adjustments for, or what. Like, you have to be cautious, and you have to honestly, like, in my opinion, do your research. Like, stop going to the people in Mexico because it's $4,000 for the entire BBL, and then you're wondering why you're not healing well, and then you have alien objects in your body, and you're getting infections and literally dying because your blood is now contaminated. Like, the cap is that it's worth it. It's not always worth it when it comes down to your life. Yep. I think we can all agree. Yep. I think the cap is that you're lying to yourself, and when you start lying to yourself, when you start lying to others, you start believing those lies, and then you start lying to yourself, and then you have no identity. The cap, the cap is that image is everything. I mean, I know we live in a very progressive and wonderful world where we have all this privilege to do what we want through media, and live our dreams and make money and things, but the cap is that that's not everything, and that real life experience and having relationships with people, having a foundation of your values through life as you go, not just having to make money, not just having to be clout famous, not just being the cutest, most poppinest girl. So that's the cap, and that's. And in reality, the women that you see on social media, when you see them in person, though their BBLs look horrible. I'm just being very honest. No, like the ones where they look really good, they spent money. It's just, The ones that when you see them in person and
You
they look
said
amazing.
spend the money or don't.
No, like they really did spend. They went to the certain
Shout out to
doctors.
those beautiful
Like
ladies
I'm
that-
just being honest, but I'm just like, let's talk about Cap. You're lying to yourself. I've seen plenty, and it's like, whoa, that is not what's on Instagram, ma'am. What are we doing right now? You look crazy.
Hey man,
You look crazy.
that was a nice segment.
Respectively, you know, the team song.
With
Thank you,
all
Moody.
due disrespect.
All due respect. No, it's respectful. It's my opinion.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Moody, for jumping off the What's Cap segment, and Lana, thank you for closing it out.
2 cents.
We're gonna,
2
thank you, my 2 cents for the sense that it made. So we're gonna go now and close out and conclude this heated and very interesting topic today and word today, which is whitewashed. Lana brought it back in full circle, and what was explained is, let's start with the fact that you came here, or your family came here. They crossed the borders in all ethnic groups.
Yep.
Got to America. You went from having Jewish niggers to Irish niggers to niggas being niggas. You know what I'm saying? You went through all those phases to where these groups decide to level up. Leveling up consisted of code switching and amongst other things, cooning, jigging, if you want to go into some of the non-dominant societies. They all leveled up for a thing called privilege that we all understand. If you work a certain sense of privilege properly, all privilege ain't power. Privilege is usage and perks, but when you want to transition it and translate it into power, it becomes more aggressive. You begin to defend that privilege, and like Lana expressed on our break, once you get so egregiously on defending that privilege, then you have then lost your identity.
Or that becomes your identity.
Well, first you continue to completely lose your identity. You're on the road of it. Then you completely lose, like the Sith Lord. Like my sci-fi friends out there, if you know how with Darth Vader, with Anakin, he had to go through that transition. He had to first lose his whole identity. He had to become immoral. He had to deny the things that he did. Like Lana was basically saying, once you start neglecting and denying and have cognitive dissonance on what you, your ancestors, your people, or anyone has done to cause harm or put yourself in a position of privilege to hold that privilege, now you are no longer now misidentified. Now you identified, now there's shame that comes with that identification, which makes it become a moral or non-moral factor.
Yeah, you have a responsibility.
Yeah, and once you choose not to stop the oppression, once you choose not to impede the disenfranchisement, and once you are aware that you are a privileged person, once you in this society know that you're getting perks, you're getting a benefit from looking white or being white or acting white, then now you do have an identity.
Yeah.
Your identity has become you.
Yep.
And once that identity has become you, now you're really ashamed of your identity, and all you have left is your privilege. So I think that really it kind of wraps this whole topic up, in a nutshell. And that was really informative what Lana gave us towards the end. And she kept pushing the envelope on that, and I was pushing the envelope as alchemist. I'm pushing the envelope on, first let's talk about how you lost it. Let's first talk about how you lost it, and once you lose something, how you respond. And that's the part I think Lana and I was getting at. That it was that gap, is that I'm like, well, you're talking about now what you are, and I'm saying I want to discuss, well, during that course of action, your response is what we're kind of discussing. It's like, hey, a lot of people don't understand that they took a response in that action. By making no action, you took a response as an action.
And then that becomes a part of your identity. So that's for me is like, yeah, you know you have an identity, you just don't want to acknowledge it.
Yes.
That's what it is.
And as far as losing your ethnicity, that does not just stand for white people. When it comes to being whitewashed, to end up to become white is not necessarily a color in this whole factor. Is what we found out at the end of this, is that white is a position. Is what I would conclude and understand. Is that we realized that black people push to be white, and that's the position. they like to be adored that they're dark skinned, is beautiful. Those same people that's pushing to be white like to be, the Latinas like to say that they're curvy. They like to hear that they're spicy. They like to hear that they got brown skin. But yet they still pushing, like Moody said in her family, they're still pushing for this position. They're still pushing for that perk. There's that posture in society. And when you give that up, it's a cost. You know, and I guess that's what we're really discussing on a deeper level, is that there's a price to pay. Just like we talked on what's capping, there's a price to pay to get that BBL. You know, there's a price to pay if you don't want to sacrifice up front. Like Lana said, if you don't want to go ahead and take the time to spend the 15 G's, do the work, do the investigation, get the trainer afterwards, get a better diet, then you're going to pay the cost later.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what white society right now is. There has been these pockets of friction that you've noticed, and we've been talking about the last 5 years since George Floyd and everything. I think that the fact that white society is losing privilege because of population, losing privilege because of the sign of the times, losing privilege because their own white children don't have the same complete thoughts. Although they wouldn't give up the power either, they still don't have the complete theology and ideology of their ancestors.
Well, the problem is, it's not that they wouldn't give up the privilege, but we're talking about a new generation who has absolutely no identity, and then now they're flocking or they're gravitating to other cultures for a sense of identity. So then now, if you have a group of children or a generation that looks up to the same minorities that were once oppressed as a role model, as a sense of self, as a sense of style, as a sense of swag or understanding.
They've been doing it.
But I'm saying now, but like you said, it's more acknowledged, it's more acceptable, it's more open, it's more. So now it's like you said, it now, because it's a term, blackfishing. That is a big term that is popping up in social media when you find young content creators like who are white or Caucasian or whatever whatever. But when you look at them, I don't know if they're black or light skinned. Light skinned black or white or Latina, and it's just interesting because it's like, but if we go back to who you are not who you looked like originally. As we go back to plastic surgery, what is the standard? The standard, but what is the Kardashian standard? No, but I'm just saying,
looking like a minority.
Ethnic.
Yeah, minority, ethnic.
To me, big lips or bigger lips, right? Curvy body.
I would like to say
exactly, because if you go back to the root of, and we can go back and say, oh well, plastic surgery, body modifications, you do what you want to. Yeah, but then at what point are you losing yourself? Because it's a plenty of celebrities that got plastic surgery. If you look at beginning photos, you look nothing like this.
Man, this is wow. You did a great job of wrapping that up too, Alchemist. Like really, really bring that all together to the point where I don't really have a lot to add. I know I normally have something to say. I just think that a lot of people are having an identity crisis in this world, plain and simple. And I just want to put that out there. It's a lot of that, and there's lots of people who these are cries for help, I think, too, a lot of this. And I just hope that this show today was able to shine a light on what's going on. I think you all did a great job of that. I want to give some final word credits too. Special shout out to the rest of our Fibonacci Radio and Galleria de Arte team. Aranda, Z, Terrence, Ruben, Manny, Esteban, and always our brand ambassadors, Kels, Michelle, Jay, and our new brand ambassador, dynamic artist Prolific Lee.
Dope.
And I also want to give my condolences to Linda Moore Cohen and her family. She transitioned, and it was a celebration the other night, and she's from our community. She's connected with a lot of people in our community here in the Bolingbrook area. So just Galleria de Arte and Fibonacci Live would like to give our condolences out to Linda, and our heartfelt to her family, her sister, her children, and her and all the other extensions to her at this time. We really wanted to take the time to give a shout out to them. And thank you guys. It was another dope show.
Oh yeah.
It was very informative. In these shows we really express ourselves, and we also get we get to explore what's in our own nature, and I really appreciate Lana for sticking to her guns, with bringing this back around to really a dope ending conclusion that are you really misidentified? Is that you know, you might have lost your ethnicity, but you never lost your identity. And I think that was the caveat here for me that I got out of this. That was a little bit opposed to the documentary, as opposed to identifying as opposed to illustrating it as a loss of identity. It's more of a cognitive dissonance, you know. And Moody came with the points that she came to kind of incorporate these particular views, and the what's capping was really interesting. And Wordsmith, again, thank you. You know, we are excited to go forward. You guys check us out. This was a dope show. Check us out on again, YouTube. Click the like button, share it, tell everybody about what you've experienced. Go back and check out our websites and get this information and challenge us.
Yeah, definitely.
Check us out and check out Galleria d'Arte at thegalleriadearte.com, and we'll see you guys in the future. See you next week. Same CP time, same CP channel.
Bye. No, we're gonna be on time. No.
Don't put the stamp on that.
We're gonna be on time.
Thanks, guys.
She said that she hate me, I hate me too. I can always tell when you're lying, girl, you're see-through. All these miles away, yeah, I just wanna see you. Baby, give me good face, she hit me like seafood. Remember when I saw you? Hi, it's nice to meet you. No, my old girl salty, she just wanna be you. I'm a dog, no Maltese, I don't wanna leave you. Once you're right here, I just don't wanna mistreat you, no. Cause I've been a douchebag before, baby girl, I don't wanna repeat. She just won't please me, she look in my eyes, told me why are you bleeding? And I don't even know how to answer. I take these drugs to my bladder. She says she noticed a pattern. She say I look gorgeous, I tell her I'm flattered. But I hate my reflection. When I look at you, all I see is perfection. I'm so depressed and I don't know the reason, just wanna feel better. Hate my reflection. When I look at you, all I see is perfection. I'm so depressed and I don't know the reason, just hope I feel better. Don't know the reason, just hope I feel better.